Yes, please.
At your opening press conference, you mentioned possibly attaching policy items to it. As you've talked to members in the last couple of days, have you narrowed down what kind of spending cuts Republicans are going to put on the table, what kind of policy things you want attached? And as you see the instability with the banking situation, are you at all concerned that running into this negotiation with the president could compound the instability of the market?
Great question. Let me take the end of your question and work backwards, okay? You brought up the banking issue. What does that do to the debt ceiling? Well, that should wake everybody up. Why are we having a banking crisis? Because government spent too much and created inflation. So should I ignore it? Should we do exactly what the president's saying and just lift the debt ceiling and create more inflation and more banking problems? I mean, this should be a wake-up call to everybody. Say, oh my God, we better do something about this debt ceiling. And for everybody, I watched a Democrat the other day listen, oh, all these things are going to get cut. The first question is, it's savings. Why? Because it's American public. And if I could spend a couple minutes, because you didn't get to be in the briefing with the Republicans and Democrats with the Congressional Budget Office. So the Congressional Budget Office, nonpartisan, just gave the revised numbers, okay? In the next 10 years, American public is going to have to pay $10.5 trillion in interest. So that for every American on your credit card, the thing you hate is when you pay that high interest. But I want America to understand what that $10.5 trillion means. That's just in the next 10 years. If you take the last 80 years, we've only paid $9 trillion in interest. So the question being, is it a question about spending or is it a question about revenue? Well, if you look at the Congressional Budget Office, on a 50-year average, we usually bring in about 17.1% of GDP in revenue. What's revenue we're bringing in today? 20%. We're above the 50-year average. How many times have we ever got 20%? Only 2 times. Only 2 times in history. So we're bringing the most we've ever brought in. On a 50-year average, we usually spend somewhere around 21-point-something% of GDP in spending. How much are we spending right now? 23.6 on our way to 25%. So we're spending well above a 50-year average, but we're bringing in more money well above in the 50 years. So the real question comes from a simple point like that. We're spending too much. It created a banking problem. And it's going to create a debt to 120% of GDP we have not seen since World War II. And we got a challenge with China. So the banking issue should wake us all up and say we should do something. And for every Democrat out there saying, oh my God, if you had savings, what would happen? We would go back to what we were spending 4 months ago. You were all pretty good 4 months ago, weren't you? So I believe to get a debt ceiling agreement, you have to be spending less than we spent before. And if we had H.R. 1 and we had energy prices lower, there'd be lower inflation, so banks would be safer. Americans would have more money in their pockets. There'd be more jobs, and the world would be safer. I would think that'd save us money. If we put in work requirements, it would help people to get back to work, so that would deal with the supply chain. More people would be working, more revenue would come in. If he wanted to do something of securing the border, it would stop 300 Americans from dying today and dying tomorrow and dying the next day. So all I'm saying is, from a perspective looking back, Republicans are being very rational, sensible. And if I look at everyone across this country, they think we should get in a room and work this out, especially because of the banking issue. Look, thank you all very much. I appreciate the time. Take care.